Is that correct?
Thank you. Yeah, you can do it to the cloud. I usually just do mine to the cloud. Then once I upload it, then I just delete it because you don't get very much cloud memory.
Okay.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Sorry.
No, thank you for reminding me. Awesome. Now we're recording, so then we can review, like if we wanted to. So I kind of started with, I started my career in the military. It's where, surgical technology sort of started, but this is definitely just as the actual profession transferred into the civilian world, it has definitely provided a lot for me in the civilian world as well. As a surgical technologist, I mean, I've had so many opportunities. After I finished my service in the military, I was able to find a job at a civilian hospital right away. My husband was still active duty every 3 years that we moved, 2 years that we moved throughout the rest of his career. I was always able to find an opportunity to work at a local hospital or even at a military hospital. So a job was always there available for me, and there is always a need for surgical technologists, which is something that's very comforting. After that, I even was able to, about 10 years later, I was able to teach at a community college. And that's something that came with the experience that I had gained as being a surgical technologist. And then I was able to work for a medical device company where I was teaching residents and surgeons how to use equipment because of my knowledge that I had gained being a surgical technologist and from scrubbing. I was able to teach hospital staff how to use equipment that was very specific to certain procedures. And these are all opportunities that I was able to, have experience because of being a surgical technologist. So, and now look at where I am. I'm able to teach all of you. So opportunities are out there. This may be somewhere that you'll be able to now see where the medical field sort of opens up and all the positions that are available to you moving forward, but also that just being a surgical technologist, as you gain experience, this is something that you can travel, those are opportunities that are out there for you. And there are a lot of wonderful experiences that can come with it. So let's talk about the history of surgical technology. A little more on the evolution. Now I've got all of you right in the middle of my on the side of my screen. So since before even the 1800s, I know that's about as far back as the book goes itself, but for all of time as medicine has happened, a helping hand has always been necessary. And surgeons, no matter how skilled they have become throughout time, they always need assistance, whether it's holding a patient down back then, or positioning a patient, or someone handing them instrumentation so that they can be more efficient in their surgical procedure. And because of such a need, even beginning before the 1800s, there was always someone there to assist. Beginning in the 1800s, it actually became official where they would have nurses help in surgery, and nurses would actually prepare the instrumentation. As you can see here in the picture, they're actually preparing the instruments just before they even bring it over to the surgeon itself, not necessarily sterile. And then by the 1900s, the nurse was also not just actually assisting in surgery, as you can see here in this picture, but also they were administering anesthesia, and they were called etherticians, not just technicians, but etherticians as well. And then throughout the 1900s, nursing or as needing assistance in surgery started to become a little bit more formal. And progressively, circulators or nurses became assistants and then circulators. And then they also became educators. And then they became educators specifically in surgical education. I see someone's name popped up.
James is asking a question, Mrs. G.
Yes.
He was asking, is ether still used for any medical purposes?
That's a good question. Do you know that, Miss Windsor?
I don't think that it is. Yeah, I don't think that it is. I think there's other gases that are, when we're talking about like the isoflurane and like those vaporized gases that anesthesia uses to keep the patient under anesthesia, ones that are more better suited now.
Was there any other question?
No, that's it.
Sorry, I didn't know anything about that. I know that ether definitely had just even being able to monitor ether back in the day was um, a little consequential, and we learned lots from that. And I think it's why now, if it is used at all, which I don't think so, as you said, those are all monitored by anesthesia machines.
I just did a quick little Google search because I know they started using ether like during childbirth. Like that was the first time, like in the 50s, 1950s, where they kind of started using it for that as well. But this says that it's still used in some developing countries, but not in the United States.
Not in the US. Thank goodness. All right, so progressing a little bit throughout some of the history of our profession. I know this is a funky little picture. That's actually a picture from MASH where it shows one of their corpsmen or medics out on the battlefield tending to some of the wounded and assisting out there, and comforting patients as they were, just not being able to be taken care of. But because the corpsmen were out there in the battlefield, doctors didn't really have anyone to assist them. And patients actually were just not really soldiers, actually, were just left to die because they couldn't take care of them out in the battlefield. So when we progressed into actually being able to have anesthesia available and antibiotics available, and thank goodness aseptic technique came in, now surgeons were able to, have these hospitals created for them. You can see this one where it's like a bunker room, and patients brought to them, and they were able to provide anesthesia and give antibiotics, and then with somewhat aseptically provide care, and more soldiers started to survive these battles. So as time passed on, they noticed that now we needed to have, it would be beneficial to have assistance during these procedures. And during the war, there were assistants needed not only in combat, but also on some of the ships. And because nurses weren't available on ships, they would have corpsmen scrub in there and whenever there was an emergency. And in these ships, I actually had a picture up there that was supposed to pop up, which was pretty cool. I think it might be on the next one. Every time that they need to do a procedure or something on there, they would call them the operating room technician, and that's where our name came about. One cool thing here that I have a picture of is waves, and that was because there was such a shortage of nurses during the 1900s, and then moving into World War II, the Naval School of Medicine or Naval School of Sciences decided to open up a program for hospital corpsmen, and most of them were women. And this program was specific for women. And this was the very first group of women, this picture here, and it's at the Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. And this is actually in 1944, which was when women were allowed to enter the military just to provide medical services. Here's my picture. There we go. So this is a pretty cool picture. This is this is a USS Mercy, which actually was still around. And this was one of the very first hospital ships. And there's a picture of the operating room and one of the first surgical technicians that served in the operating room there. And that is where the name operating room technician actually came about. I thought that the Navy had actually coined that um, profession or that position, operating room technician, but nope, it was the Army, so I'll have to let them have it. So as we progress on in the 1970s, and this is actually a pretty cool picture as well, because once you guys get into the operating room, you'll see that almost everything nowadays, except for instrumentation, is disposable. But this is in the 1970s when now what would be the corpsmen out in battle, they were so knowledgeable and skilled that civilian hospitals asked them to come in and assist in surgery, but they actually played the role of the circulator instead, which kind of made sense. You know, they knew everything about how to run around and go grab things in order to make these surgeries happen. So the nurses were the ones who were scrubbing in. And this is actually, it's just a really cool picture to show that. But then soon after, you know, the need for training came along and regulations, and then finally AORN initiated the switch where now the nurse was actually the circulator, and then the corpsman that was circulating the room is now who became the operating room technician. You may see those gowns again though, right, Miss Windsor? We hope. All right, so progressing forward, then we finally began to receive formal training. So ARN, which is, you know, it's one of the best known organizations out there, one of the most popular ones. They have their hands in everything when it comes to, you know, setting standards, especially in the operating room. They are who helped us actually, you know, they are at the foundation of, you know, formalizing our education and helping us become recognized, even though we're not affiliated with them anymore. But they created the very first manual for training. And here I actually was able to find a picture of it, and it was called the Teaching the Operating Room Technician. And I think it was only like 140 pages or so, which I found rather interesting. I may be incorrect, but I thought it was super short. And if only you would wish, right? Because how long is this book that we're studying that we just started now? And that's only one of your books that you're going to receive. Only to go back to the 1970s, right? Not just for the dress. But then as our education became even more formal, we were becoming more recognized by committees like the LCCST, and then the Joint Review Committee on Education, which came about, and then that's when we separated from AORN and we became a sole organization, which is AST. And AST stands for the Association of Surgical Technologists. And that is what we are still known for even today.
Mrs. G.
No.
Kaylin had a question about, can we still get that book?
It's actually available on Amazon.
There you go.
They were out, actually. I looked it up and they were out, but I found that interesting that you can get anything on Amazon. Seriously. But I did find it on Amazon. That I thought that was really crazy that it was actually still available.
That is crazy. How much does it cost?
It was like $19.99. It really
We should
wasn't
get
that
one for our
expensive.
collection.
I think we need to put it in, yeah, that would be really cool to have in our collection.
It would.
We'll have to order it. All right. So the Association of Surgical Technologists, that is who creates the standards for us, and also who sets the code of ethics for us as well that we follow. So we are going to take a little field trip onto AST. Let's see. All right. Sorry, Miss Windsor. You may have to, let's see. I think I can do it.
You
Bear
can
with
do
me,
it.
everyone.
You got this.
I got this. Woo. Yay. All right, so I have dropped in the AST website link on there. And if you guys can take a little field trip onto that website following in that link, find the code of ethics, and then also see if you can find the standards of practice. And then we'll come back and we'll chat about what you found interesting on those two. How long shall we give them, Mrs. Windsor?
You want him to look at both of those?
Yes.
I don't know. 5 minutes.
Oh, 5
How much?
minutes.
I don't know. How much do you want them to find out?
Just a few interesting things. 5 minutes is good. So take a little field trip and then come on back in 5 minutes.
You said code of ethics and what else?
The standards of practice.
Thanks.
Let me know what you find interesting. Or if you have any questions about them. Yes, thank you. I was typing that. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm learning from the best.
It's like when you have two surge techs at the field and they're like grabbing the same thing at the same time. We're like, oh, okay.
Kim, did you find your way? So the link, did everyone find something at least? A little bit? Anything interesting?
I can't find where the code of ethics and the standards of practice is.
Did anyone find the code of ethics? Anyone?
I found the code of ethics, but I didn't find the other one.
So Tiffany found a trick. She just Googled AST code of ethics. That website is super resourceful, so you sort of have to dig. Maybe 5 minutes was a little short in order to be able to find exactly what we're looking for. So Cameron found the standards of practice resolution. Thank you for posting that. We can go on that website and see. So did anyone find anything interesting or have any questions about it? I mean, if not, we can go and check it out ourselves or together. So here, let's do that. All right, so if we go to the website, trying to find, there it is. And then we work our way from left to right here, and you can go to where legislation, some cool things about the website. I mean, again, it is just extremely resourceful. There's so much that we can just sit here for hours clicking around. But a few interesting things that I did find on here were like the legislations and state laws. So here on this map, it's pretty cool. You can click on the state, like we all live for the most part now. Is everyone in Arizona now? Yeah. Click on Arizona and it'll show the surgical technologist laws and regulations. So here it'll tell you that currently in this state does not have any laws or regulations that require surgical technologists to be licensed, certified, or registered in order to work in the state. However, individual healthcare facilities may require surgical technologists to be certified as a condition of employment. And I do have to say that though the state does not require it itself, 99.9% of employers, if not 100% of employers here, do require for you to at least have graduated from an accredited program, if not also to be certified as well. And Miss B could probably attest to that since she's the one who's going out there placing all of you. So interesting. I mean, if you were to, let's say, this is a resource that you can use if once you graduated or as you were getting close to graduating, you were looking for a position somewhere, to travel or even go back home. Some of you that aren't from Arizona, if you wanted to return home, you can always look at your state, and I can't remember who it was that may have moved here, and see whether or not your state actually has any laws and regulations that may or may not, that you may or may not need to be aware of. So here the state of Illinois does have laws and regulations, and this one is since 2013, but it says that effective in November 27 of 2018, in order for a surgical technologist to renew his or her registration as a registered surgical technologist, RST, with the Illinois Department of Finance and Professional Regulations, the ST must show proof that his or her certification is current. So you actually must be certified. So that's rather interesting. I know that the state of Virginia also has some requirements. And these states usually, the good thing is that they are all posted here. So this one's effective July 2015, and it states that the state of Virginia prohibits individuals from using the title registered surgical technologist unless the individual is registered with the Virginia Board of Medicine. So if you ever wanted to take on a travel job in Virginia, you would have to register with the Board of Medicine. So an individual can only register if he or she is currently certified by the National Board of Surgical Technology, which is NBSTSA, or has completed a military surgical program. So even if one of us here from Pima wanted to head out to Virginia for a job, we would want to make sure that we passed our certification exam. So this is why this little map is rather interesting, to be able to see what each state requires. And then another interesting link that I found here on AST is under members, we go to professional resources. So this is super cool. You can go to salary map for 2020 and get an idea of what the salary is across the nation for 2020 for surgical technologists starting out.
So Mrs. G, Caitlin was asking a good question and I answered it in the chat, but just so that everybody else knows, Caitlin was asking how long is certification good for? And that's 2 years. It used to be 4. They just recently changed it to 2.
Yep, and we're going to review that here in a little bit. But yeah, that is, and that was just within the last year, if I'm not mistaken, because I'm still in the stage of I renew every 4th year. So until I renew next year, then now I will, from then forward or then on, then I will have to renew every 2 years.
Yeah, same for me too.
They did lower the amount of CEUs that were required in between those 2 years, thank goodness.
Yeah, it used to be 60 for 4 years and now it's 30 for 2 years, right?
Yeah, to maintain your certification. But it is, I think, easier to keep up with your CEUs than it is to recertify.
For
Once
sure.
you take this exam, don't let it lapse. But we'll talk about that. So anyways, I just wanted to show you guys a few, spots here on AST that you can find, just to get some information on if you ever wanted to travel, any of our standards of practice, any of the state laws, or even state requirements, and then also here a base pay, according to each state, what's out there. Some of you are young, taking on a travel job afterwards might be a lot of fun.
I was actually really interested when I read it in the book that was an option.
To travel?
Yeah.
It's big. Yeah, it's 13-week programs, and for the most part, I think some of them may be a little different, but every 13 weeks you get to choose a new place to live in. And some of the organizations pay for your pay per diem, so they also pay for your rent. Some of them will pay for your travel in between. So there's an opportunity not only to be able to see the entire nation, but also to make some pretty good money.
Yeah, it sounds like a really cool program.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who, at first a lot of times they want some experience. So, when you graduate, find a place to work, gain some experience, work a few years, 1 or 2, and then sometimes someone will take you even right away. But work a year and get nice and comfy with at least your skills, and then hit the ground running. Buy a camper. That's what one of my students did. She bought a camper And she decided to take a travel job. Her and her puppies had a cute little camper that they fixed up. They bought a fixer-upper camper.
Mhm. Mrs. G. Piper was asking, do you have to take a refresher course or just do the CEUs?
So once you have certified, as long as you're within that window, that 2-year window, then you can just do your CEUs within those 2 years, and then that is your recertification. And you can continue to do that every 2 years and just keep up with it that way. If you actually let it lapse, then you have to actually recertify itself. So you would have to, for NB, correct, Mrs. Windsor, for NBSTSA, you would actually have to sit for the exam again.
If you let it lapse, yes. Yes, I did have an instructor that worked with me that did not do CEUs. She recertified via taking her test every 4 years.
Some people, some of us are not great test takers. We actually talked about that a little bit ago. And I would, yeah, if you're not a good test taker, this test is already, rather challenging. It's not rather, it is challenging. It is tough. And so to take that every 2 years, that's insane to me. But if you're that type of person who can just like memorize and then dump and go, then, and that works for you, sure. But to me, I just feel like doing the CEUs not only keeps me relevant, but also it's just less stressful. That's a day on the couch, reading some articles, answering some questions, and then submitting it on time, which the articles on AST are really super interesting. So I would much prefer to do that. And I know that the cost is actually rather equal.
Mm-hmm.
If you do CEUs or you actually decide to just challenge the exam, the cost there isn't much of a difference. It's more of what can you handle yourself and guarantee that you're going to be able to accomplish. The CEUs it's at your own pace.
Yeah, the test is too stressful, especially when like our livelihood, we have to have our CST to be able to teach in this program or to run this program. So for me, it's CEUs are easier too. Christy is asking, are the CEs found on the website or are they through the place that you work?
Yep. So there are a lot of different ways to receive CEUs. So AST here actually has, see where it says, try to find some of it on the website.
Might be under members. There we go.
Yeah, there it is. Under members, you can go under, find out all the policies about CEs here, but this is where they actually have packages, which I think is super awesome because that also saves money as well. But here you can buy a package of, this is package number 1. So $35, I think it tells you, does it say how many CEs?
21 credits.
Oh, there it is, 21, number 1, 21 credits. So you get 21 CEs for $35. And I mean, that's actually pretty cool. And this is what the exams look like. And usually these CEs, they actually have the link for the article as well. So you would read the article and then you would take the exam. So it's not like they're just giving you an exam and you just sit there and take it and find the information. You actually can read the article, which most of them are super interesting. And then you would take the exam and answer questions according to, that are related to the article itself. So that's actually pretty cool. And you can do that on your own time. I mean, even if you passed the exam today, you can start doing your CEs tomorrow and have them already done for the next 2 years and not have to worry about it. But also if you go to an AST conference, you can receive CEs that way as well. Now, of course, with what's going on with Corona, I'm not sure, it's something that we'll just have to keep ourselves informed with, if and when it's going to happen and where. But usually if you go to a conference for a day or two, there are lectures going on all day long, super interesting lectures. And just by sitting in on these lectures and participating, you receive CEUs as well.
Caitlin is asking, are the CEUs timed or can you read the article and answer them at the same time?
You can read the article and answer them at the same time. You can have the article open on one page. I've been known to do that. And then the question on the other. I have two screens at home, so I literally put the article on one and then the screen with all the questions on the other, and I just sit there and read them and answer them right away. So again, another reason why I feel like it's so much easier to do the CEUs than it is to actually sit in the exam, sit for the exam. It makes me nervous.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I see that they're all different credits. Is there a minimum amount of credits that we have to take in order to have the renewal done?
Yes. So I know that before, for the 4 years, it was 80. And then now I think it's 60. Yes, correct. It's on here. It's 60 credits now for a year.
I
Okay.
thought it was 30 for 2 years.
I'm sorry, 30. So yes, 30 for 2 years.
Oh, you did mention that. Sorry.
Yeah. So you're pretty much, by just doing this one for $35, getting 21 credits, you're almost done.
Mhm.
I do have to say that after you take them, though, they're not available anymore. So you can't repeat the same one in 2 years down the road. I know, if only we could. I saw your face. If only we could, but we can't. So after I've done, most of these, some of them are from the early 2000s. But once you've taken them, they're no longer available to you. So you'd have to select new ones every year. You do get free ones every year as well, or every renewal. Like every time you renew, there's 3 new articles that you can actually do for free. So it's about 6 CEUs, which is awesome. So I always take advantage of those. I'll go into the library and look for right here and earn CEUs. I'd go there and dig in there for as many free ones as I can find.
Mhm.
So, and then I would pay for them if I needed to. By the time you guys are back here in class, I'll be struggling through a few of these because I need to renew next year, I think.
So is it like a class, or do you just take like the tests that are with the packages?
I'm sorry.
Is it like a class that you take where you have to like read some books or something, or is it just the test and the article?
So here from the website itself, you would just go to CE, onto the CE, and you would read the article. Like this one is like pediatric cardiac transplantation. So you get to choose a subject that you would be interested in as well, which is pretty cool. So you would read the article based on that or related to it, and then the exam would be directly related to that. So you would first read the article, and then right here you can click on take the test. It's not going to let me do it. Oh yeah, it actually let me start it. I don't want to do it yet though. I don't want him to charge me for it. But it actually lets you start taking the exam itself. And normally what I do is I just have the article open and then the quiz open at the same time, and I do them at the same time. Any other questions, Betty?
Do you get like a certificate when you complete one, or like where is the proof like kept at? Like in this website, like with your account?
Yes. So
Okay.
that's the super awesome thing, and why I usually just do CEUs either through AST at one of their conferences, or I do them right on their website, is because it automatically populates here. And so AST and NBSTSA communicate, and so that way all of my CEUs are in a bank here at AST. And that way, and it is all monitored and completed by AST for you. That's part of your membership. So if you did it, completed a CEU, like you attended an in-service and this other company provided free CEUs, you would have to get it in writing that you attended. And then you can then submit that to AST and they would process it, and then they would also now store it for you as well. So depending on where you work, sometimes they'll have reps from different companies come and provide in services, which, you know, are, if you sat there for an hour and listened to them talk, then it's worth 2 free CEUs. So you want to make sure you get a copy of your name on the list, and then you provide that to AST. You either email it or scan it, and then they'll process it for you. And then now you've got CEUs to account for. So it's kind of like a bank account. So that's the awesome thing about AST. And if you do the ones in the magazines that come to you every month, once you become members, then those you just mail them in as well. And I think they're $6. Those are expensive.
So I have one more question. Does your CPR card count towards a CEU as well, like it does? Like I have AMT for my medical assistant stuff. Does that count towards as well?
No, unfortunately, those don't count right now. I don't know of any changes that may have happened, but anything that you have prior to, you know, actually being certified wouldn't count. But even moving forward, those don't count at this time. Not sure if we're ever going to get to that point. And sorry, my screen just changed. Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, since we were kind of mentioned and we're talking about CEUs and AST, actually, we're going to go on a break in a little bit. Is it okay if they go on a break a few minutes early, Miss Windsor, instead of just starting up? Okay. So if you guys want to take a 10, 15, Miss Windsor? All right. Let's do a 10-minute break.
Sounds perfect.
All right, so we will be back at 3:33.
2:33.
Yes.
2:33.
Oh. Yeah,
She's
I gotta fix my timing. I know.
Wishful thinking.
See you not in an hour. Yeah.
80.
2:33. There, I'll fix it. I have a fat finger. No one understands. There we go. And we're back. Yay. All right, so let me see if I can get back to our screen. Here we go. Is everyone back? Actually, let me wait. Yeah. All right, so continuing on. Started playing around in AST, but we can sit there for hours playing around. And if you ever went to a conference for AST, it's super cool too. It's very entertaining, and they do a great job at taking care of us STs and providing us as much knowledge as they can in order for us to continue our education. Oh, nope. Click once. Can you see my screen? Everything is gone now. All right. So I'm sure as you read in the book, you saw that there are other other organizations that we are affiliated with as well. And these are all organizations which play a role in accrediting surgical technology programs. So such as ARC, which is the Accreditation Review Council on Education in Surgical Technology and Surgical Assisting. So it's ARC STSA. And they collaborate with KHEP, correct, Miss Windsor, if you could. Like I always say that incorrectly.
Yes. Are you supposed to be sharing your screen?
I am.
I can't see it.
No, don't tell me that. Yeah. So I have been talking and not sharing my screen. Sorry. Oop, I even clicked on it. I might have frozen the sharing there now.
Now it's going. Yes, you're good.
So let's, all right.
Okay, so yes, KHEP.
KHEP, yes. I was like, I can never say it correct. I'm like, kaha, hep. That's the, Hispanic in me saying, trying to
KHEP.
pronounce it like my grandma would, kaha, ka'a. So this is the Commission on Accreditation, and they collaborate. So KHEP also collaborates to accredit ST programs as well as ABHES at the institutional level, which is who is our accreditation organization, correct, Ms. Windsor?
Correct.
So why do you guys think that it is important for you to attend an accredited program, for us to be an accredited school? Anyone? Any ideas?
How it looks on like when you apply for a job, like saying that we went to a school that was accredited.
So employers definitely do look for whether or not you did attend an accredited program. Why do you think that's important? I mean, yes,
So
it
they know
does
we
look
got
good.
good education.
Yeah. So it shows that, you set a high standard for yourself. And it sets the standard high because accredited schools have a high standard curriculum. Okay.
Jennifer also said, so we have the standard amount of knowledge.
Above and beyond.
Yes.
Not just the standard amount, especially with the program that you guys have selected. So this is a degree program. So this is above and beyond. This is a higher level of education than just a regular certification program, where not to take away from a certification program, but it's more skills based. Here you're also, you know, having that foundation of understanding communication, mathematics, and professionalism, which goes a long way when it comes to not only being in our field as surgical technologists, but if you wanted to move forward also into then a bachelor's degree program.
If we were to move forward into the bachelor degree, would we get a higher like title,
So
or would
there
we
is
still be the CST?
a higher title of surgical technologist.
Yeah.
So there is not a bachelor's degree program here at Pima. And I'm not sure that there is one anywhere in the nation, actually.
There is.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's like NAU. But yeah, there are some surge tech programs out there that are bachelor's degree. I'm not sure of the benefit of it. I guess it depends on what your trajectory is, or what, you know, what your goal is. You know, if you want to work in the OR as a surge tech and that's what you want to do, then and if you just want to have your bachelor's degree, I mean, maybe you can move into more of a managerial role. I'm not sure, but.
I don't know if this is true, but correct me if I'm wrong. When I went in for surgery to have my thyroid removed, I talked to the nurses that were on my case, and I told her that I was going to Pima to become a surgical technologist, and she told me that if I continued and became like an RN in the OR, you just, more letters after your name, the more you'll get paid.
Well, RNs do get paid more than we do.
Technically, we have more letters than RN, but so it's
Yeah.
not necessarily about the amount of letters.
Yeah.
And she said that as being the nurse in the OR, she still gets to like do some of like the surgical tech stuff and hand some tools over or equipment. And just like if you continue your education, then you'll be, I don't know.
Well, I guess.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead, Mrs. G, sorry.
Good.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it kind of goes back to what do you want to do? Like, you know, you don't have to be an RN to be able to assist in surgery. You could be first assist, but as an RN, it makes you more, it opens up more doors, more avenues as far as, you know, there's a very wide variety of things you can do as a nurse besides working in the operating room, but they can hire surge techs for cheaper than they can RNs. So that's why, you know, RNs really don't scrub day in and day out anymore, unless it's like, I think the VA, now they're having RNs as scrubs because whatever, but that's my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, and if you recall from even what you were reading, you know, our career started as nurses. The nurses were actually who scrubbed cases before, and there are still a lot of nurses who actually enjoy scrubbing, and that may still come from that era of them scrubbing. They didn't necessarily enjoy the giving up the role, so they like to do both. So there are definitely some who actually even started also as surgical technologists, more importantly, and then became operating room nurses. And the best operating room nurses are usually ones that used to be STs first. So with having started your career in the medical field with an associate degree program already as an ST. If you decided, again, it's all based on what you are wanting long-term, then to move into an RN program, you at least would have your associate's degree done, and then you can move into an RN program. But having more letters behind your name, it all depends on the letters. And if it's only letters that count, then you're sort of minimizing what your, you know, your value. So, but this could definitely be a starting point. I have not met a surgical technologist who's gone to a 4-year program. I actually didn't know anything about that. Hadn't heard about it, so I'm just being honest with all of you. But definitely 2-year programs, you know, vocational certificate programs, and those are available here. Again, not to take away from them, but they are a lot shorter and are more based on skills and passing than they are on you know, all the knowledge that you're gaining from a 2-year college degree program where you end up with an associate's because of the gen eds that you actually add on to your skill sets as well. And then, of course, the 4-year degree program that we spoke of, and then military programs, which is what I actually went to. And some military programs, especially back in my day, they weren't, I think I would have much appreciated to have gone to a program like this one where it's well organized and sort of spread out. And even now through these sort of weird times, they're just more spread out and actually allows you for time to sort of soak in all the information. I went to a just about 7-month program back then, but I went 6 to 7 days a week. So it was Monday through Friday. And we did rotations in the operating room when we went through clinicals in order to gain all of our hours as well. So it was just really compacted and intense. I like this traditional program, and especially a 2-year program where you're actually able to walk out of here, not just with your certification, but also with an associate's degree under your belt.
Mrs. G. Cameron has a question. He is asking, is CST a good stepping stone to becoming a perfusionist?
I know that perfusionist is actually, that is an allied profession, isn't it? It is definitely a certification. Not one that I know we can transition into laterally, that I know of. Do you know anything, Mrs. Windsor?
I know there's additional education associated with it. I don't think it's something that we can make a lateral move into.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure. Let's see. Perfusionist school. It says, how do I become a perfusionist? Hold on one second. The entry requirements and degree training for perfusionists are varied. Some programs require a bachelor's degree or a combination of health science and practical experience. There are 18 schools in the United States offered at certificate, bachelor's, and master's degree levels.
Interesting.
So I guess it depends on state regulations and those kinds of things, what programs require. I would say if that's something that you're interested in, look at certifications. I mean, Mrs. G and I were talking about how way back when I went to Surg Tech school, I was very naive about the quality of the program that I went into. So I would just caution you there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it sounds like this could be definitely at least a stepping stone, since you'll have a degree under your belt, a 2-year degree. But definitely I would become informed prior to making that move. Get settled in surgical technology first, see if you like it.
Yep.
So, all right, so we were talking about NBSTSA and what is, and that it's our certifying body for surgical technology. And these are some of, this is how some of the training programs that are out there, either vocational, 2-year, 4-year college, or military program. And of course, the recommendation is a 2-year associate program. And that is just a good idea because it just provides a good foundation for you to step in either direction as you get out there in the medical field and see what's available and where your career can go. As we'll discuss here later on, you can see that there are opportunities with having a degree as a surgical technologist to have and obtain certain positions within an operating room or even in a hospital. So let's take a look at NBSTSA just to navigate a little and play with it. Yeah. We can make it available to you guys. So I'll walk you through. We can do it together. Here's the NBSTSA website. It's very user-friendly. You can see here that there's our own, we have our own section, CST. So in all the information that you would need, even though you're going to receive that here from us, on being certified is right under CST certification. Super easy to navigate. So it has a section for first time and all of the requirements needed. So here you can see eligibility requirements for graduates of a surgical technology program. And the program must have been KHEP or ABHES accredited during your enrollment. So you're all on the right path. Good to know, right?
Yes.
So it's pretty interesting. And here, I mean, another, resource for being able to, it's got exam prep sections with all the study aids and reference materials available to you, practice exams that you'll have access to, and then you'll even have access to an app on your phone in order to be able to practice, which I think is super cool for those of you who are, all techie. I can barely take a picture on my phone.
One of the other things that I think is really helpful is under this little blue helpful resources right here, the CST examination content outline. That basically gives you the nuts and bolts of what your test is going to cover. So, when you start your CST prep course with Mrs. B, she'll, give you this wonderful packet of information that includes this. But, just so, you have it and you have an awareness, and we're going to be incorporating more like practice type exams into your courses as the material applies. So this is how they build the test. This is the criteria that they use to write their questions, basically. Thank you for showing that.
Thank you for pointing us in the right direction.
And it even tells you how many items, like if you look under kind of near the top of the screen there where it said perioperative care or even basic sciences, it says 33 items. And then it breaks it down, 20 items that are have to do with anatomy and physiology or whatever the case may be. So an item is a question. So they're saying that there's that many questions on that specific topic or what have you. I can tell you that micro and pharmacology are the two that, students perform the poorest on. So they've reduced the number of items. more recently, there used to be a different set of guidelines, a different cut score or pass rate, if you will, pass score, but they've since adjusted that. It used to be 200 questions and they've reduced it to 175. It used to be a cut score of 116. They've reduced that to 102. So what that means is you have to get 102 questions right out of the 175 to be able to pass.
I find it interesting. I was just, thank you for, saying that they have cut. It's something that I know we've discussed before, but it wasn't at the forefront because all I can remember, and if you think about it, I've been sort of, I guess, charred for life, scarred for life, charred for life.
Charred and scarred.
Yeah, I took the exam 20 years ago, to be exact, actually, because it was in 2000 that I first certified. And it felt like there was so much pharmacology in it and anesthesia in it. And I kept continuously hearing it even for years throughout. And usually, probably it felt that way because there were more questions back then, but also because they were the toughest ones for for anyone to pass and for me to remember all the information. I think it's because, all we're thinking that we're based on is, we're surgical technologists and all we need to study is, anatomy and physiology and, instrumentation. So those sort of microbiology and pharmacology fell by the wayside when it came to study time. And you may hate us at the time that pharmacology comes along, but we try to give you as much information as we can and not take away any of the importance of it because of the fact that we know that it's one of those tough ones on the exam and we really want you to be well prepared. So it's nice to see though, only 6 and 7 items. Whew, that's awesome.
Yes. And then Evan had a good question too. He asked how long you have to take the test. And I just put into the chat that you have 4 hours to take it. And you will take that here on campus.
And some of you may take the whole 4 hours.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine.
Yes, it is. Take your time.
Yep. But it's not like, I get this question quite a bit. Like, is it like the NCLEX where the NCLEX is for nursing and when you meet your quota of how many questions you have to answer, it just like shuts off and you're done. But the CST exam is not like that. You will take all 175 questions regardless.
Will we know right away, like right when we click submit, will it tell us if we pass?
Sadly, no. And the reason why, like if you were to take it at a testing center, yes. But because you're taking it here on campus and you're not considered a graduate yet, NBSTSA will not release the results until they receive proof that you're a graduate. So as soon as you guys take your tests, we start pounding registrar over the head to confer your degrees so that we can send those unofficial transcripts to NBSTSA and get your results. So hopefully within 7 to 10 days, we can be reaching out to you with your results.
So are we taking the test before graduation or like closer to?
So the way that it was before we shifted to this weird Wednesday to Tuesday week, the last day of the program was on Friday. And so everybody took the test on Friday. However, now that it's this Wednesday to Tuesday, the way we have it set up for this next go around with cohort 3 is they'll finish their clinicals on Tuesday, then they'll have Wednesday, so they'll technically be done with school on Tuesday. And then Tuesday, yes, then Wednesday, Thursday, they'll have to study. Then Friday, they'll come to campus to take the test. So there's a good chance that it'll be like that when you guys take the exam. So, you know, still hopefully within a week, you know, as long as all the paperwork is completed and you guys do your exit interviews and everything gets tied up, we can get those results to you. Does that help? Yeah, and then Caitlin is asking, can we take it on paper? The answer is no.
No.
Gone are the days.
I mean, literally, we do not have the ultimate control over that exam, even though it's being, you know, you guys are actually taking it here. So I don't even think, what are the rules? I don't think we're even allowed anywhere near the classroom.
No, so what will happen is we have a proctor that knows nothing about Surge Tech. And at this point, it's Jake, who used to be at the front desk, but now he's in financial aid. Anyways, he's our proctor. On the day of the exam, everybody will show up. They need 2 forms of ID. They will lock all of their stuff in a separate room. They're only allowed to bring in a writing stick. And they go, you know, everybody goes in, and then you can get a blank sheet of paper, scratch paper, but that's all you're allowed to have in there. You can't have your phones, you can't have a calculator, nothing else except for just something to write with.
Well, very similar to if you go to a testing site, you have all that locked up in a little locker, and then if you do have like a little sweater to wear while you're taking a 4-hour exam in a cold room, it has to be inspected as well. So, and there's a proctor in there.
Yes, Cameron was asking another good question. He's asking, will they be able to go back and double check their answers? Yes. Yes,
That's
you
why I
can.
make good use of those 4 hours. I know that you can select, like, mark as read, and then you can go back and read all the ones that you have marked as read again or read, so that you can review those before you make your final decision, which is awesome to be able to do that. But interestingly, this morning we were talking about second guessing ourselves when we take tests. Again, all of us are in school. And
Yes,
some of
Mrs.
us,
B. Ask
Yeah,
Mrs. B what she learned.
Don't change your answer.
Don't change your answers. Trust your gut.
100. I would have made 100 had I not changed my answer.
Uh-huh.
and you know what? We hear that often. We've heard that throughout almost our entire, you know, careers as students. And even now as adults, you know, adult students, it's interesting though to hear that, you know, we still make that mistake. We kind of second guess ourselves. And then the ones we did get wrong were the ones we ended up changing, which is like, oh, why did I do that? So just really be mindful of that as you're moving into taking exams here. Even like today, you know, you took the pre-test, and then again, as you, we progress through the program, and you know, we're taking other quizzes, other tests, and then prep exams for the CST. You know, you'll figure out whether or not that's something that's true to you.
They can't do it now.
Oh.
They are locked out. They have to answer one question at a time, and they cannot go back.
Yeah, I know. Just that you're second guessing yourself at least. Sorry. Yeah, I don't want to make any confusion. Thank you for correcting that. Or
it's
clarifying.
Just because they're the remote, like if they were on campus, it wouldn't be that way, but it's because of the remote testing. That's what we have to do. But, and then Caitlin was asking, are they multiple choice? And yes, they are all multiple choice. Actually, when I sat for my NBS TSA exam, I flagged 14 questions that I felt I wasn't 100% sure about the answers. And I finished my test in 45 minutes. So I went back through those 14 and I thought to myself, I can change them, or I can practice what I preach to my students and leave them. And so I left them. And I did pass. But I think I missed 11. Yeah. So I don't know if they were the ones I flagged or not. You never, you know, they don't tell you that stuff. They do give you like a breakdown of your score, but.
Yeah. I think that's kind of the tough one, is that you don't ever really know which ones it was that you missed.
Yeah, and then on the for your CRCST for sterile processing, they don't even let you know your score. They just
No.
say you either passed or you failed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That examination was another one that I don't know why it was sort of nerve-wracking. It was a lot shorter, quicker, way years later after my CST. But yeah, I found it interesting that you have no score to actually go by. It's just pass or fail.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wonder if this might be better for our CST certification, but I don't. I'm not even going to put that out there. Interestingly, though, we've talked all about certification and what the requirements are. So we've definitely, talked about it being you must be a graduate of KHEP or an abscess, wow, accredited program. Mrs. Stolf is laughing at me. You must currently be or previously be a CST or have been a CST. You must have been a graduate of a military program or previously certified ST with lapsed membership. So again, someone who graduated from a military program as I did, or if, I were to let my certification lapse next year and not take it again for a couple of years, you can potentially recertify as well. Or ST student before graduation with results held until proof of graduation. So that's the situation in which you guys are going to be in. You will technically finish your courses on that Tuesday or Wednesday, but you will take your examination on that Friday, and then the results are going to be held until you're actually done. You have officially graduated, but you'll have Miss Windsor and Mrs. B, fighting at the bit, pounding on people, telling them, get us those results so that we can let them know whether or not they passed. So the National Center for Competency Testing, or NCCT, this is, I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, but if you're back to your PowerPoint, we still only see the content outline. I apologize for interrupting you.
No, I'm glad you did, because I'm thinking that I'm going along with my presentation.
I know, it'll be an hour before anybody else says.
Yes, guys. No one's going to tell me. And I can't see the chat either because I'm thinking I'm all up in it. It's the spoils, I guess, because I'm used to having 2 screens, but I like it better. This is way easier to try to manage it if you've got help. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're good to go now. Sorry.
Nope. Thank you. So NCCT is another certifying agency or organization. And this agency or organization is super interesting. Actually, Miss Windsor has her certification. Her first certification came from NCCT. And here, one thing that we had discussed before, it works sort of in the benefit of for people who may or may not have gone to an accredited program, but have had so many years of scrubbing experience, especially back in our day when we first got went through school and became surgical technologists. There were a lot of scrubs and first assists who had been working at these hospitals and assisting for a long time. And when it became a requirement to actually have gone to an accredited school or be certified, these people were going to lose their jobs. So this certifying agency made it so that if they provided validation or validation that they had actually been scrubbing for at least 7 years within those past 10 years. So it couldn't have been, I scrubbed 10 years ago. It's more of within the last 7 years. They can, and an accumulative of 150 hours, then they can actually sit for the exam and challenge it. And if they passed, then now they were certified. It's also beneficial for like nurses, which we discussed before, who may or may not have started as STs, but would like to have that knowledge. They can study the exam if they are that good at it, and be able to challenge the exam as well. as long as they've have validated scrub time and experience. So I know that Miss Windsor has a pretty good story about, you know, her certification experience through NCCT way back in the day before then she transferred over to be an NBS TSA certified surgical technologist.
Yeah, when I went to through my surg tech program, like I mentioned, I didn't know like about accreditation. I just wanted to work in the operating room, and so you know, I found a school, and it wasn't that great of a program, but I went through. Didn't even know about certification because programs that aren't accredited, they don't broadcast that. So when I started working in the field a couple years later, for one of my annual reviews, my manager asked me if I was certified, and I said no. So I started looking into that, and that's when I realized that I wasn't eligible to sit for the NBS TSA exam. One of my colleagues said, told me about NCCT. And they've actually come a really long way. So it's probably close to 20 years that I've been certified with NCCT, and I keep that current. I've worked as a subject matter expert with NCCT for several years, and then was also on their board of testing as a subject matter expert for Surg Tech for a 3-year term. And in that time, we rewrote the certification exam, and it is now nationally certified and recognized the same as the NBS TSA exam. NBS TSA actually reached out to NCCT, this is alphabet soup, I apologize, to ask if they could purchase their exam. Really? So NBS TSA is getting a little bit run for their money. But anyways, the NCCT has always kind of been near and dear to my heart, just because, you know, I was able to have an opportunity to get certified when I wouldn't have been able to otherwise, which was fine. And hospitals don't really care. AST and NBS TSA, they work very closely together, and they have lobbyists that go talk to the legislative bodies and say, hey, certification is really important, blah, 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 this is why. And they push for NBS TSA certification, and they want that verbiage in there. But most facilities, they don't care which one. Anyways, fast forward till I started teaching and was eligible or was offered the program director job, and was told that I had to have NBS TSA certification. And the only route for me to do that at the time was to go through a 9-month refresher course that was accredited by either APHES or KHEP. And that was going to cost me $10,000 to do that. And my company was willing to pay for half. But it just so happened that NBS TSA did, I don't know, the universe, the stars aligned. I'm not sure what happened, but there was a loophole. And I was telling Mrs. G, it was like it was written for me. Like I kind of fit all of that criteria and was able to sit for that certification exam without having to spend $10,000 and 10 months of my life, you know, going through the motions so that I could sit for the exam. So, you know, I think you guys are lucky that you are where you are, because it was a circuitous route, if you will, for me to get my NBS TSA certification. And you have to have it to work in an accredited program or teach in an accredited program. So anyways, that's my story.
I think it's awesome that both certifying bodies exist. Sure, you know, NBS TSA is what's at the forefront, what's all in our faces, you know, and it's awesome that we have these structures in order to get us to certification. But I think that NCCT is like amazing for having, you know, come about and created these opportunities for people who, you know, again, back in the day weren't as informed as we are now about whether accreditation was even important or did it even matter. And in order to, you know, keep our livelihood and be able to continue on, I think it's awesome that they were around and that they're still around and that now they're giving, you know, NBS CSA a run for their money. So I think that's pretty interesting to, you know, realize. But it's awesome to just have all of them around in order to, you know, give us value to what we bring to the table. I think more than anything, because that's what certification does, you know.
Yes, it definitely speaks to like one's level of competency.
Yes. You know, having been able to focus enough and be able to, I guess, pass and attain and get through this program, but then also be able to focus and be able to achieve passing that examination definitely shows definitely a level of dedication and a level of competency, as Ms. Windsor said. And if I click, there it is. And we did a brief little talk, actually. We talked quite a bit about CEUs and what's necessary to maintain your certification. So continuing education. This is just, again, I feel that doing the CEs makes me sort of stay relevant and knowledgeable and feel like I'm somewhat still competent in this position. They're great ways to, in order to be able to do that, not only reading those articles, but also in attending some of the conferences that are provided by AST. But AST is the main resource for CEs at this time, even though you can actually obtain them through other articles, through attending in-services, and as we state here in state assemblies, AST state assemblies. But right now with Corona going on, I think it would be just, we would have to just maintain a vigilant eye out on the website and seeing what's actually going to be coming available, you know, during all these changes. But you guys are going to be here in school. So right now, this is your education. You're not at the continuing point just yet. So clinical ladder program that's out there, and I know that you guys some read in the book. This was actually established by AST. Again, thank you AST for, you know, all the things that it's done for us in order to provide so many different opportunities. But not every hospital does adopt a clinical ladder program. But some of them are out there, and actually these are ideas that if your hospital didn't adopt, you can actually bring into. But it's usually for setting levels for us to be able and, you know, to have some incentive to grow within a facility and work towards, which is awesome. With each level, usually, you know, there's an incentive of pay increase. And sometimes there's even an incentive of just not just pay increase, but also with a promotion, a physician, you know, being in charge or anything. So usually right now you guys are at the student level here, but we'll be moving out into the entry level, which is when you first graduate and you're, you know, a brand new employee, still sort of learning the ropes of just the facility that you're working in, and then also of being a surgical technologist. And then level 2 is usually considered proficient. And this is when you've been with a facility for at least about a year and you are demonstrating that you can scrub just about any of the surgical procedures that are done at certain facilities within all of the disciplines, and that now you can actually take call. Again, this is something that's not adopted by all facilities. Some facilities, as soon as you get there, you are on the call list. um, and others, you know, you go through your orientation and then, you know, show proficiency in being able to know your way around an operating room, their operating room specifically, how to pull a case, and then being able to actually adapt quickly to the environment whenever there's an emergency. And so every facility is different, but it's nice when there is a clinical ladder established. And then there's level 3 expert, which is that you are proficient, and this usually takes some time in all the tasks that are expected within the position as of a surgical technologist in the operating room, knowing what all the equipment is for almost all the procedures, knowing how they function and how they should function properly. You're able to scrub into any kind of case, whether, you know, complicated or whether it's even set up by someone else, or amongst any of the different disciplines or specialties. So you can scrub anything from eye cases, you know, cataracts and retinas, to neuro cases where you're doing craniotomies and surgeries on the spine. So clinical ladder is pretty awesome. And it's something that actually, if you wanted some more information on, on the AFC website, there's actually there's like 2 different links where you can actually go to and follow and be able to get more information on clinical ladders.
Mrs. G.
Yes.
Megan was asking, just going back to when you were talking about like AST conferences and state assemblies, where are the conferences at?
So those are actually, they change every year from year to year because it's a big to-do. It's every year is chosen by the AST committee. They select like someplace, I don't know that it's ever been in here, but I know that's definitely, I've gone to the one in Georgia, I've gone to one in Las Vegas, and it's usually over a weekend long, and Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday, and they, but those are actually, they are announced on the website, and then, or they are also announced on the AST magazine itself. And it usually changes. The main conference of the year, the AST conference of the year, changes from year to year where the location is. It's hardly ever in the same place. And then state assemblies are also announced on AST, and where they're going to be occurring within the state that you would like to attend to. So again, now with Corona going on, and I haven't seen any updates at all on where any of the conferences are going to be held by any organization, AORN, AST, you know, or a manager, all those big ones where our, you know, surgical team people normally go and congregate for, you know, CEUs and be able to bring all these valuable ideas to this year. Those have all been canceled. But usually on the websites is where you can find the information on where and when they're going to be held and available. So within the next 2 years, we'll keep an eye out and see. Someone else. I see a flash. Okay, thank you. So we're going to maybe take a little break now. Let's take 10 minutes before we start on the next phase of the presentation, and we'll go from there. So come back. Let me stop sharing. See, there it goes. It showed up at 3:31, not 4:31. I almost did it again. All right, 3:31. All righty, so let's try this whole, okay, Mrs. Stolp can let me know, since no one else is letting me know that I'm not sharing my screen.
So Jennifer asked, I can only see up to today, she said.
Miss Windsor's gonna look into that.
Oh. I can see your screen, but I can only see off the slides.
Oh, yeah. Yay. All right, so let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Meat and taters.
Meat taters. The fun part. So our role as the CST or ST or STSR, we go by so many different things, and some may call you by so many other names. But in our profession, we may or may not, you may or may not hear someone call you a scrub tech. And being in the scrub role, even though you are a surgical technologist, it's the term scrub, you know, has been coined for a long, long time. So our role as scrub tech. So we're a member of the surgical team. Obviously, we've all hopefully, you know, come to terms with that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be tied into this little 4-foot square with a team all of blue, kind of like the Smurfs. And you're scrubbed in, you're gowned up, and you're gloved, and you're ready to participate in surgery. But this doesn't actually occur just by you. As you can see here, we have our scrub tech in the corner, but part of our team and who we are there to provide support for is our surgeon. And then our assistant, which may or may not be there all the time. Sometimes the scrub plays the role of the assistant as well, as long as it's within our scope and under the direction of the surgeon as well. And then here is our scrub, ready to go. She's got an instrument in her hands. She's got a bowl of water ready. She is being mindful of her surgical field. So what else is part of our role? And this is just like a really basic sort of explanation, to tell you the truth. You see a lot of the blue here, but within every step that I am describing here, this is a large step, but there's so many little steps to get you to that point itself. And it's what you're going to progressively learn and build upon as we continue through our, you know, education here as surgical technologists. But I don't want to overwhelm you with all of the details, but we're going to be building on those as it is. So part of our role in order to prepare, maintain and prepare and be part of that surgical team is to actually gown, you know, do a surgical scrub, which we will learn how to do here properly, and then gown and glove and, you know, have our PPE on as well. Also part of our role is to set up a surgical or a sterile field. And as you can see there, we have a surgical technologist with a handful of instruments getting ready to prepare their back table in order to be prepared for their surgery, for the surgery. And these instruments and the equipment that may or may not show up on your back table for you to prepare for you, that you will have, will be all solely based on what kind of procedure it is that you're doing, and then what the surgeon prefers for that specific procedure. We will also, part of our job is to, you know, dress the surgical team. So we're the first ones at the surgical field. We're the ones who, you know, gown up, and we open the surgical field and we go do the surgical scrub, and then we gown and glove up, and then we are the ones who then dress the surgeon or the assistant as well, in order for them to then now be ready for the surgical field. I see flashing. Now I get a flash at least.
Oh, I was Rihanna saying weeks 1 of 13 are now available.
Oh, there we go. Ta-da, hopefully that helps. We also are the one who passes instrumentation. So we are knowledgeable of hundreds of instruments, each that is specific for specific procedures or disciplines. we will be knowledgeable on all those and be able to have an understanding, depending on the procedure, what we're going to need to have prepared in order to then anticipate what the surgeon is going to need through each step of the surgical case. So part of our responsibility also includes being able to, count sponges, count sharps, count instruments, all while we're protecting the surgical field. And throughout, you're also communicating with the surgeon, with the assistant, and trying to anticipate their needs. We're continuously communicating with the circulator, making sure that we are prepared to anticipate those needs with items that we may be running out of, or we see a potential need for. We would continuously communicate with the circulator. Oops, there goes my slides. Part of our job as well is to receive medications and to also initiate counts as we start to close several, sections of or come to an end of several sections of procedures. So that is part of our responsibility. And part of that is also being able to communicate with the circulator and the surgical team. But our role is learned, and here, as we continue to study and build upon all of these steps, we will build that foundation with you and then carry you through, being able to progressively add on to it. So, don't be overwhelmed over all of it. This is just a little taste of it.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
When it comes to counting, is it ever going to be just like your word alone, or is there always going to be like another set of eyes?
So no, it will never be. There's always, you are constantly communicating with someone on the surgical team. And most importantly, when it comes to counts, you're communicating with your circulator. So the circulator and yourself will do these counts together, and it is you are counting them out itemized, which is part of what we're learning now with the other group, is how to itemize our everything from needles, sutures, sponges, 1, 2, 3, 4, not, oh, I have 3, and this is something that you do collectively with your circulator, and you are both confirming each and every item that goes on that list, whether it is sponges, or if it's instrumentation, or if it's suture needles, or if it's hypodermic needles. All of these things are accounted for, and they are all accounted for by 2 people. The most important people being the circulator and the scrub.
Good.
Yeah. It's never your word, and it's never something that you just say it is. You both have to physically see them and confirm it. So, and that's why it's part of the surgical team, and your probably, closest team member is your circulator. This is who counts with you and who's even more so responsible of the count itself. So they're hopefully, for the most part, on their ball. Can't say there aren't some that aren't, but they're also responsible for counting. They're also responsible for being able to help you receive items that you may or may not need, and try to anticipate as well what's going on the surgical field, and what the surgeon may or may not need, what the patient may or may not need, what anesthesia may or may not need. But this is your non-sterile team member, so they are your partner. You're the sterile one at the field, controlling everything and being able to ask for what you see right then and there, the need, and then they're the ones who are going to go out there and get it for you. So it is in your best interest to be as prepared as possible, so you're not making that person run too much, because then you might not be all that friendly as you should be. But the nurse are, we share the responsibilities with them. We initiate the count, or they, we will learn that the count has to happen with us together, but they're also part of, the count, the final count as well. They are who are delivering some of this, non-sterile equipment into the room, depending on what is going on with a surgical procedure. They're the ones who are going to get it, but they're also the ones who are delivering sterile equipment onto the field if all of a sudden there is a need. And wasn't prepared for it or you weren't prepared for it. This is who's responsible for going to get the patient in the morning and ensuring that, you know, that they're going through their checklist of, did you eat? Are you allergic to anything? This is who goes and talks to the patient prior to. And then this is who also brings the patient into the room along with anesthesia and then positions the patient. They assist anesthesia to being able to get the patient to sleep or sedated. And then they're the ones who position the patient into the position that we're going to need them for the surgical procedure. So if we're working on the left side of the abdomen, then they would be the ones who would, you know, position the patient with hopefully some help. If we're working on the right leg, they would actually get all the equipment or have it ready in order to position that leg. And then they would also be the ones who would perform the skin prep, depending on the surgical site as well. So they have a lot of responsibilities, and there are so many that I can add to. I mean, they do the urinary catheterization as well. I'm like, there's so much that goes on their plate, but it's awesome to be a part of their team and to do our part in order to make a nice and smooth, you know, surgical procedure, surgical case. So another member that may or may not be present, depending on the facility, depending on the procedure, is a second assist. So this person is sort of the, some facilities have them, some surgeons actually have hired them privately to be their right hand. So you actually are alleviated of some of the responsibilities of having to retract for a surgeon. But for a second assist, this is a person who, as the surgeon is making the incision, you know, they're suctioning and then also, you know, helping with hemostasis. So they're either passing the cautery pencil to them or they're either retracting. So if the surgeon needs to be able to visualize a certain organ as they're making their way down through the layers of, you know, tissue, then we have retractors, instruments that are called retractors. And this second assistant is like a second pair of hands who would be actually pulling back on the tissue, you know, in an expert manner in order to be able to provide visualization of a procedure. So, and then this person as well, towards the end of the case, you know, they're who help close. Sometimes they may be the ones who the doctor would close those first very important layers of tissue. And then that final layer, skin layer, the doctor may let the second assistant close and then apply the dressing while the doctor breaks scrub and then goes and writes in the chart, you know, what was done during the surgical procedure and what the patient is going to need post-operatively. So the second assistant, again, that second set of hands gets to be in place of them instead. So other responsibilities that we may or may not have depending on where we're going to work. So, or other responsibilities that may be available. So emergency duty, this is call. Do all of you understand what call is? Yes. Depending on the facility that you're going to be working on, you know, some facilities, especially major hospitals, you will more than likely be part of a call team, and hopefully you have the opportunity to choose your call days. You know, they kind of put a big calendar out for, I don't know, 8 weeks at a time sometimes. And you can sign up for first or second call. So, you know, that comes all with after you've gone through some orientation and are familiar with the facility and their protocols for emergencies and what kind of procedures actually come through there. So that you actually are able to, you know, quickly get there, be able to, you know, gather all the equipment necessary, open and set up in a timely manner. Usually we have like 30 minutes from the moment that phone rings to be able to be in the facility and ready to go to cut skin. Other duties that we may or may not have are instrumentation specialists. So this is actually where you would be the person who's taking care of the instruments. And I know that that's something that some facilities do provide. And usually it's, you could be working in sterile processing, so that there is an instrumentation specialist certification. But then some facilities also have, and I know that even in the military, we did have like instrumentation specialists per discipline. So in neuro, we had someone who took care of all of the neuro instruments, and it was an ST who did that and made sure that every needle holder, you know, they would sit there and inspect it and put it to the light, make sure that it was actually occluding completely and no light was coming through, that all of the box locks on the clamps were actually coming together and nothing was actually, you know, impaired before it went into sterilization or the sterile processing department to be taken care of for then being ready for the next case. Patient care specialist. So this is actually someone who, it says to the direct care that the surgical technologist or nursing and medical team provides. So we are involved in patient care, of course. So, you know, our responsibility is to be diligent, have integrity, and make sure that we're doing, we're in our role according to our scope of practice. So that is our responsibility for patient care. I'm like trying to read. And then there's leadership management. So leadership management, I know that some opportunities that I've seen some surgical technologists have are working in not only in like sterile processing, sort of in charge of the instrumentation that's being ordered for each discipline, but even in the operating room, being in charge of certain disciplines, in charge of making sure you're the urology tech, so you're in charge of all of the instrumentation and equipment that's necessary for that specific discipline. So we have the opportunities to sort of manage within the operating room certain specialties that we may become super efficient at. And then there's preceptor, which you will be directly involved with once you guys make it out into the clinical, onto your clinical sites. You're going to have, you know, surgical technologists who are, have been designated to be, you know, extremely knowledgeable and experts within their field and within their disciplines. And these are the people who are going to be assisting you and guiding you through transitioning into actually being in the real medical, you know, surgical environment, and then ensuring that you are actually following all of the protocols that we have been taught, that we have been teaching you here and according to the facilities as well. And then they're going to be also sort of grading you. So watching you and making sure that, and guiding you through whether or not, you know, there's anywhere that you need help with in moving along within your progression as a surgical technologist. Any questions? No? Oh, that's Miss Windsor's. I was like, 13 weeks or now, what? I read that incorrectly. All right, so let's do a little job skills activity. All right, so each of you think of a job that you, how many of you are you working right now? Any of you have jobs? Okay, wow, a lot of you. So if any of you think of your current job or a job that you've had in the past, and think of 5 skills that you were required to have for either the position you have now or a position in the past, and then write those down.
You said 5 skills?
Yes. 5 skills that were required for that specific position or job that you have now or had in the past. You guys have them written down? Yeah. All right, so we're going to send you out into some breakout rooms. And the discussion is going to be, as a group, I want for all of you to compare all the skills that you've just written down on your list and see how many of them actually sort of overlap with the other people on your team. Okay, so, and then from